Okay. Whoops. Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today with Sarah Lohman. And Sarah, I know we're going to get into, we have lots of topics we can talk about women's health, hormonal health. Anyways, but what I'd love to hear from you is just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you can help, and how you got there. And I know that that's a lot of questions all in one.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yes, thank you for those questions. And we certainly will dive into everything. I just real fast want to say thank you so much for inviting me. Yes. I know this is the first time we met. I just love your vibe. You have such a kind, loving energy. So thank you for this opportunity to share my story with you and your audience. And thank you guys for listening. My name is Coach Sarah Joy, and I have such a juicy story. Okay, so grab your organic popcorn and let's dive in. Hi, everyone. So let me take you back to where my health crisis began, which was, I literally know the date. It was September 29th, 2008. And I know that because I can Google it, because it was directly correlated to the 2008 crash. And if you guys are my age, which I'm turning 44 in a week, you remember that day. It was all over the news, like the stock market went down. It was bad, right? The infamous 2008 crash.
Oh, yes.
Yep. So at that time, I'd been married for 7 years and my son was 4 years old. So basically, like anything and everything that could go wrong in that crash and then some happened to me and my family. So it started, if you guys remember, the crash hit the construction industry really, really hard. And my husband at the time was repairing hydraulic hoses on heavy equipment. So the first domino that fell was he got laid off in round 3, right? Because remember all the layoffs? Yep. So
I was laid off from my first job back then as well. Yep.
So
I remember it well as well. Yeah.
Yep. You're like going to be flashing back with me to your life. Yep. So I was working as a full-time receiving manager for a major retail alcohol company at the time. And one of the things that the evil Maharajas, I call them, what they did is they started taking away all of our benefits. And I'd been management for years. We'd all been management for years. And like all of a sudden I was forced from full-time to part-time. They took all my bennies away and they gave me a little letter and was like, you need to sign this letter that you're going to keep working 25 hours a week, no bennies, or bye. And it was like, oh my gosh. So my husband's income was like, my income was cut in half. And it was just that alone was like a massive whirlwind. So yeah, after losing our 2 main streams of income and benefits, most of the guys in my whole neighborhood were let go too, because they were also blue collar, like construction guys. And I must have missed the memo from my husband that while he was going to be enjoying his unemployment, that he was going to be drunk from sun up to sundown with all the guys in the neighborhood, like easy ups on my driveway, Coors Light, 24 packs everywhere. And that he also had made the decision that he was going to start sleeping around with all of the girls in my neighborhood. So I, had caught on really quickly to his like shady, sneaky stuff and figured out he was talking to 2 specific other girls. So as if those 3 hits weren't bad enough, I woke up one day to a note taped to my front door that our house was going up for auction and that my landlord had decided to stop paying the mortgage during the crash. And he just forgot to tell us, and we were still paying rent. And he was letting the house go and basically stealing from us. That's the way I look at it. So between an affair, losing my house, and my house going up for auction, I basically I packed my whole house. I called like all these friends from church and I was like, hey, can you help me move my whole house into a storage unit? And they're like, yeah. So they came over with their horse trailers, desert trailers, everything. And we moved out in like a couple of hours. And I moved across town to my in-laws' house with my son. But my husband chose not to come with us because he was still living in La La Party land. And he ended up like deciding to get an apartment with one of these girls.
Mhm.
So a few months after all of this, my older brother was going through a really hard time. He just lost his scholarship and he was like dead set on being an NBA player. He was a 6'8" basketball beast. And he lost his scholarship and came home and just went like off the charts, like into drugs and alcohol, probably, I'm assuming, from the depression of all of it. And he started making a lot of stupid mistakes and ended up getting himself sentenced to 10 years in prison. And then I was like suddenly the advocate to his life and like his support and lifeline. So in the middle of all of these crises, I started losing clumps of hair. You know, when we're straightening our hair and it's just like handfuls and you're like, holy crap, what is happening?
Yep.
It was just like that. So also, if you guys have ever been through something really, really like stressful in your life, you know that your appetite gets suppressed. Like it's a natural fight or flight defense mechanism that our bodies have. So my appetite was so suppressed. All I could eat, literally all I could stomach was Cliff Bars, ZVS sodas, and Starbucks smoothies. So from everything, I lost 35 pounds. And I'm just naturally like really tall and skinny. I'm 5'9" and like 130 pounds, like just naturally. So me losing 35 pounds was like scary, gross skinny, right? And not pretty. So I was getting made fun of for that. And I was still just going through all of this shit with my husband living with another girl, trying to tell me he wants me back, me having all of my hair falling out. And I couldn't sleep. I was a walking zombie from all of this heartbreak of everything. So I basically just cried myself to death, like literally all day, all night. Like the only way I made it through my workday is I would have my headphones in. I was listening to Seven Dust, some sort of rage metal band to like drown out my own thoughts and try to not bawl my eyes out all day long. And it was just literally hell. So I came to this conclusion of like, okay, something has to change. Either I got to file for divorce or I got to get this fucker back, right? So I was like, okay, I started thinking about like, well, if I filed for divorce, right? Because my husband was just in this like crazy, like, I want to have sex with everyone. I want to like do all these drugs and like sleep with everyone. And I'm thinking like, holy crap, if I divorce this guy, he's going to get like have custody of my little 4-year-old. And what is my 4-year-old going to be subjected to? So I made this conscious decision to like sacrifice my own happiness to stay with him, to like protect my son from that, right? And it was I knew it was almost like this self-betrayal that I knew I had to do as a mother. But it was like it was what's best for my son. So it was like an easy decision, even though I knew I was going to hurt myself, right? So I'm sitting here now trying to get my husband back, who I didn't even want. And he's like, okay, well, I'll come be back with you if you buy me a $2,000 toolbox. And I was like, oh my God. So I bought him his toolbox and he moved in with us. And so I'm thinking like, okay, cool. Everything's going to like come back to a little bit of normalcy. But during this downtime was when I had all of my sudden onset of symptoms, like crazy symptoms. Like my forearms suddenly had all these pains, like weird pains, sharp pains. I couldn't sleep. It was affecting my ability to work. I had like the same pains in my kneecaps, in my calves. And it just was 2 weeks straight of pain. I'm like trying to type on my computer at work with like cold packs on my arms. And those just like went away. And then all of a sudden, like that fatigue. And anyone that has chronic fatigue, you know what I mean? It's not like I just need to get a good night's rest fatigue. It's like, I can't fucking move fatigue. It's like my body feels like concrete, like dead weights fatigue. Like, what is wrong with me? I'm dying. And so since I started getting really scared for myself. So since I had no more medical benefits, and I really did think I was just overworking myself because I was lifting really heavy cases of like wine and champagne all the time, down stocking pallets and all of the things I had to do as a receiver. So I went to my manager, who was also my best friend at the time. And I was like, hey, can you workman's comp me to the urgent care? And she was like, okay. So I go at like 6 o'clock after my shift one night, and I will never forget this. Anyone that's been diagnosed with anything, they never forget these moments, right? So I'm sitting on the crunchy paper. That's what I call it. And the doctor comes in, he sits down, crosses his legs. He's just like looking at my chart, most nonchalant, just like dick attitude. And he's like, what's going on? And I was like, well, I have all these pains and da, 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 da. And he's like, well, I'm gonna check your thyroid. And I remember I was like, what? Like, okay. So he sends me down the hall. I have the worst, most painful blood draw I ever experienced in my life, which then set the stage for anxiety and panic attacks at every one of my blood draws for the next 10 years. And 30 minutes later, he's like, well, okay, TSH is like a 7. It was like a 7 something. He's like, so you have low thyroid function. Follow up with your primary in the morning so you can get some meds. All right, have a nice night. Bye. And I was like, wait, well, it was like the slow motion. This is how I remember
What's
it.
this
It was
mean? I don't know. Yeah, like
yeah. Do you remember that? Okay. Think of the movie Sandlot, right? Like the police officer, the movie Sandlot, where it's like forever, like slow motion, right? That's how I went into shock, which I now know what that is, right? And I started feeling like his sentence was slow-mo, you have hypo, and I went into shock. So he walks out and I'm just sitting there dumbfounded, which no one should ever go to a doctor's appointment alone. I think we all need advocates at our doctor's appointments because you never know we're going to hit you with some shit like this, right?
well, especially with the chronic stuff, if it's not like routine and you're trying to figure it out, it's such a journey trying to figure out like yes, it's a journey and yeah.
Yeah.
And having
So
at least questions prepared on paper or
yeah.
like something, but
And
yes,
you
yeah.
need someone else to like almost record what's being said, literally like physically recording it on like your audio so you can re-listen to what happened. Because when you go into that state of shock, you don't remember, you don't know what's going on. And it's hard for you to even like communicate, like you freeze.
Yep.
You get the fight, flight, or freeze. You freeze in that moment. And that's what I did. I froze and I went to slow-mo and he walks out. And I remember I'm still sitting there on the crunch paper in the room alone. No one even said like, oh, and I remember thinking like, well, I guess I should leave now. So I got up and I went out to my truck and I just bawled my eyes out. What else do we do? It's scary, right? Cried my freaking eyes out, drove home. And that was my first diagnosis of hypothyroidism in 2009. And little did I know that was going to be the beginning of battling like a complete shit show for the next 7 years. So the way I describe it, like I went from sick to sicker to sickest over the next 6 to 7 year like time frame. I was struggling still with the extreme weakness and fatigue. It never went away. The extreme weakness and fatigue gave me panic attacks on the daily, which, it didn't help that I was living on coffee and energy drinks just to try to make it through the day, which also gives you anxiety and panic attacks. So it's that vicious circle.
Yeah. And then your health and wellness and like gut health and all that is also like affected, but when you're only stomaching thing, yeah, it's all
Shit show. It's a shit show.
yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, as the years went on, I was collecting more and more symptoms. So it was like, then I had the bloating, then I was having constipation just from eating, and eating in and of itself became a chore, like a nightmare. And I was like reacting to everything I ate. And I counted, I had like up to 7 food intolerances at some point. I had severe heart pain, heart palpitations, scary memory loss. I was 10-second Tom. I literally thought I convinced myself I was at like early onset like dementia. Literally, I was like, I'm fucked. I'm 39 and I'm already losing my memory. I had brain fog, depression. I mean, everything everyone else battles, like I had it too. Yeah. And what pissed me off is like, none of this made sense because I thought I was doing everything right. Like this is such a huge thing that I talk to my clients about. It's like, I'm sitting here going, but I shifted to clean meats and I eat organic and I'm gluten-free and I'm dairy-free and I'm soy-free and I'm corn-free and I'm on top of everything. And I take a multivitamin that has 500 things in it and cost me $80 and I'm doing green smoothies every morning. But why? Like, why am I still so sick? And it just, like, it's so frustrating that you're like, I'm trying so hard, but it's still getting worse. It didn't compute. So just like anyone else in these situations, so desperate to recover my health, right? Because like we remember what it's like to be good. Like we remember life before getting all these shitty symptoms, you know? And that's sort of like what haunts you in the whole thing is like, you long for that person back, right?
Yep.
So I was like doctor hopping like crazy. Everything that we are all doing. I had like 5 different primaries, 4 different endos, 2 different functional medicine doctors, 3 different alternative medicine doctors. It was like, if this person couldn't help me, goodbye. What can you do? You can't help me, goodbye. What can you do? It was just that, you know, the hopping, because you're like, someone's got to be able to help me.
Well, also too, part of the problem is, and I've done it myself on my journey, but part of the problem with that hopping is not properly setting expectation. Well, one, they either might not know what they're doing with that, or 2, not giving it enough of a shot, because sometimes it can be 8 months, 12 months, 2 years of working with that one person or a couple different people, but in like a different team to get you better. So when you're hopping, it's kind of like, wait, you just want that immediate, make me feel better. How does this work? So yeah. So what ended up happening? So when did you find,
Yeah. So by 2015, I couldn't do anything else. I was having too many panic attacks at work. I was too fatigued. So I begged my doctor to take me out on disability, and he put me through all these horrible hoops, which I passed. And I took that last little bit of shred of hope I had left, and I poured all my disability into one more doctor, and she went crazy and was like pulling 15 vials on me at a time. And she's like, you have Epstein-Barr and you're not absorbing your nutrients. And she dropped a second diagnosis bomb on me of, you have Hashimoto's. And like, she was just like giving me all these answers. And her solution was literally shoving nutrients in my veins. Like, here's some B12 shots. Here's some IVs, you know, multivitamin IVs, and go be in the sauna. And that was it. That was her help. Here's a little bit of lysine monolaurin for 1 month. Okay, are you better? You know, I did that for 6 months. $5,000 later, I was like, I can't do that. I literally physically can't afford this anymore. And like my heart, my emotions, I was like, I can't, I don't know what else to do. I had tried everything in my mind up until that point, everything that I knew of, right? So I resolved to give up. I made the conscious decision, like, I can't do this. I'm done. And if this thing is going to kill me, so be it. I'm done. And so I just basically laid in bed all day long, depressed, because I was just ready to die.
you didn't know what to do. Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. So my brother finally, he served his 10. That's how long this was, right? My brother had served his entire 10-year sentence. And about, 6 months, the years are getting fuzzy now, 6 months to a year after I'd resolved to like give up, he was finally released. And long story short, he had a really hard time. He was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, and Hashimoto's while he was in prison too. And I was his advocate for that as well. So he not only had a hard time reacclimating to society because so much had changed from the time he was gone, and he was still struggling with his health as well. And he really like faked it, like got a girlfriend, got a job. He was doing really good. And sadly, he ended up turning back to drugs to cope with his low energy. And that led to him having a run-in with the cops 3 days before his 39th birthday. And he ended up getting shot 14 times and dying in an SUV on the side of a ditch of the road.
I'm so sorry to hear that. That is awful.
It was, but you know what? Honestly, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I can only say that now, right? And I'll tell you why. So his sudden death, like, and he was my best friend, ride or die. Like, we had one of those crazy tight relationships, brother-sister relationships, right? His sudden death literally saved me because it jolted me awake out of my nightmare. And it showed me how short and precious life truly is. And with this new perspective, I decided, oh my gosh, I was like, looking at everything. And I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with all of this. And I took my power back and I dropped 3 massive bombs, nuclear bombs on my life, I call them. And the first bomb I dropped was I decided to file for divorce. And that I was done being in a terribly abusive marriage to a narcissistic alcoholic. The next bomb I dropped was I was going to move out. But since I didn't work anymore, I had no money. And so I started selling all my stuff. I sold my juicer, I sold my beach cruiser, my blender, and I saved up $500. And I was just texting like anyone in my contact list, like, hey, can I move in with you? And this girl across the street was like, sure, why not? So I moved out across the street, but I was so stoked because I was out.
That's a major step. Yeah.
It was. Yeah, I could see him out the window, which sucked, but it was a huge step. And the last bomb I dropped was I enrolled in full-time college, and I started working on my new degree in health and fitness. And then 6 months later, I ended up moving back home to San Diego. So I completely changed my entire life on purpose. And it really was the best thing that, and I will forever thank my brother for that. So, so even though I was like a lot happier, like I really, like my energy got better, my depression went away. I had like a new lease on life. So I honestly like felt less symptoms, but I did still have significant symptoms like the memory loss, the bloating, sensitivity to heat, the anxiety, panic attacks, almost damn near killed me every day. And so I realized like, okay, there's still some stuff that's really, really wrong with me. What am I going to do? So in the middle of college, I'm studying 2 schools at this point, 60 hours a week. And I was like, okay, I found a program. You know how the universe likes to work. I was shown a program that just happened to give me access to like any labs I wanted.
Wow.
And I was like a kid in the candy store. So I would get my grant money once a semester from my colleges. And I would just go testing happy on myself. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I had no one helping me. And I was just reading the test and going like, let's do that one. Let's do that one. I did this for about a year. And I would just like, take one, get the results back, study it. Wow. Every time I got a test back and I would sit at my table and I would study what it was saying to me, it was like one small piece to my puzzle. And I remember I would just sit and I would weep with happiness because it was just so incredible to find out what I was desperately seeking, answers.
Which is crazy because like that's like literally I've worked with practitioners before who were like, oh, I've healed myself. Not quite in this way though. This is a total, like you literally were running tests on yourself and being like, what does the blood look like? Or what does,
like I was getting full lab reports back and Googling every single, even if there was 70 things, like a full CBC where they test everything, I would Google and research every single thing and write down what it meant and then understand it and like, okay, how does this correlate to what my body's doing, the symptoms I'm presenting? Like I was literally researching and studying my own health. And then at the same time, because I'd moved back home, I actually found a new doctor. He was so cool. And his name was Dr. Cool. Like, I'm not kidding. It was so fun to work with him. So because of all the research I was doing with the answers that previous doctor had given me, I was going to him too, to try to get some of it through my insurance. And I was like, hey, can you run my full EBV panel? Hey, can you do this? And can you test my antibodies? And he was like doing just like kind of basic things for me where I was going crazy on my gut, my cortisol, adrenal, all kinds of things, my hair on my own. And so it was really awesome to have his support on that. Not only in the beginning, but also like a few months later when because I was tracking them. And so I would be like, hey, here's my base point to do all these like herbs, foods, vitamins, minerals, energy work, all these things, and then like retest. How did it work? Right. It was amazing. So I am proud to say that I actually reversed all of my symptoms and
Yeah.
I've unidentified myself from my diagnoses all by
Mhm.
myself.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Like seriously, it's like tragedy what a turnaround
Mhm.
and for having to know to keep going and to like keep fighting for your health and like I think you mentioned it before like you knew what good felt like so it's like that constant battle and that's because people have asked me too the same thing like why and I'm like I just know what good feels like and it's not this
Yeah.
well, I know I have to be able to get back there so yeah that's now who do you work with now who are your current clients that you're helping.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, because I was able to reverse hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, that
Mhm.
is my jam.
Yep.
So, anyone with Graves, hypo, or Hashi's, or a combination of
Yep.
any and all of them, which there's a lot of combinations, I coach. I do hone in on women specifically, but I know that this does, men have this as well. So,
Yep.
I can help men just as well, just as much.
Are some of those. So I've even heard of some, and like I think they thought I had Hashimoto's at one point too, but or Graves. All of them. They're like I
Yeah,
have
right.
disease, which is the great imitator. So it's like it causes all sorts of issues like that everywhere. But so what? How would you describe what some of those are, and what some of the common symptoms are, and when someone should look into? Yeah, we can get into all that. So yes, but
Yeah.
we'll start with what they are.
Okay, so hyper and Graves, they swing upwards. Okay, so people that are struggling from hyper or Graves, they go very they struggle putting weight on. They
Mhm.
struggle with a lot of anxiety. They struggle with a lot of nervousness. It's like they're and the reason why I say swing upwards is because when someone's hypo, their thyroid slows down. When someone's hyper, it's just like the hyper.
Yep.
They speed up, their system speeds up. So they will experience a lot of hair loss, a lot of inability to gain weight. Those are the main ones. Some of them, there's a combination of Graves with TED, TED disease, which is like bulging eyes
Yep.
and like puffy, like eye problems. So I've noticed that those tend to go hand in hand. But anyone with hyper or hypo can have a combination of Hashimoto diagnoses involved. You can have two at the same time, and you can actually swing. Like if your medication is dosed too high, you
Yep.
can go into hyper and you
Yep.
can go into the anxiety and losing weight and all of that. If your medication is, if you're hyper, it is dosed too much, it can put you into hypo. So there's sort of a lot of confusion on that right there. But Hashimoto's is, it's like all three of these, the hypo especially and Hashi's, is like they struggle losing weight. They struggle sleeping. They have insomnia. They struggle with moods. They struggle with their periods, as well as depression, as well as nodules or tons of panic attacks. It's like any and every symptom that you could imagine could be lumped into at least hypo and Hashi's together. Lots
Is
of
it all, thyroid dysfunction?
no.
Ah, okay, so
And
that's
that's
what
one of the
yeah,
things that I found out.
yeah, yeah. Well, because 'cause I've gone for all testing and I still don't understand, but I would go for testing and they'd be like, "Your panels are normal, your thyroid's normal, your levels are normal," and I was like, "There's clearly something not normal," but yeah, that's why so, yeah.
Well, that's the problem with the testing, right? Is it's uncalibrated.
Mhm.
So what I mean by that is they created the TSH test, which is what they used to diagnose women with in the 70s. And even though in 2000, I think it was 2016, the like American Academy of, I forget their name all the way, something that has to do with the thyroid, like a foundation that has to do with the thyroid that could like be considered a shot caller. Like
Mhm.
they made an official announcement to the public. Like I've read it saying this testing range is way too big,
Yep.
and that the 4.5 range that the normal where it tops out, that is that's the thyroid level of like an 80-year-old. Why
Wow.
are we doing that? You know, and so there was supposed to be like a whole recall of the labs, like recalibrating their ranges to bring it to more of a narrow of like 0.5 to 2.5, but they never did that. And so the doctors just, they're overworked, they're slammed, and they just literally look at like the indicator on your lab, and if it says a little H for high next to your digit, or the L for low, then they'll be like, oh, it's out of range, you know. But if it's in that, if it's not flagged and it's in that range, you're like, oh, you're fine. And that's the problem to begin with.
So if women are having, or just any women or men having some symptoms, they want to get testing, what should they ask their doctors to test for?
So I just did a live on my page. You guys can go check this out. It's about antibodies. It's about TGO, TPO antibodies. So one of the things that I discovered, during the whole process of reversing my 25 symptoms and undiagnosing myself, I discovered what I call the 10 root cause factors of thyroid illness. And the factors are, first and foremost, pathogen infections, then gut imbalances, then vitamin and mineral deficiencies, and then what I call your environment, and then medication effects. I don't ever call them side effects. I think that's stupid. They're effects, trapped trauma, improper nutrition and malnourishment, toxic heavy metal overload, and spiritual depletions. So when a client hires me, the first thing that I want to know is, if they have any current labs that I can look at, is what their TGO and TPO antibodies are. Because one of the main root cause factors of any and all thyroid illnesses that I have discovered within myself and all of my clients is underlying viral and bacterial infections. So we're talking Epstein-Barr, we're talking HPV, we're talking strep. And the majority of my clients, when I start digging on them, I'm like, did you have strep a lot as a child, or even have your tonsils removed? They're like, yes. And I'm like, I know you did, because EBV and strep go hand in hand, which is really interesting too. So if they have one, they have the other. So when I'm looking to, I call it the discovery phase. When I start working with my clients, it's like, I have a doctor's letter that I give them. And I say, okay, I want you to take this to your doctor, and I want all these tests pulled, or as many as I can. I have a little cute note where I'm like, hi, my name is Sarah. Your patient's working with me. I would like you to pull all these labs. Majority of doctors are really cool with it. So I run a full thyroid panel, so I can get the TGO, TPO. I run a full EBV infection panel. I look for CMV, I look for strep, and any other infection markers that I can look for. And if they come back higher on their TPO and TGO antibodies, that's point number one of, okay, we're dealing with an infection. Now, what infection is it? Let's go dig. So I'll run herpes simplex 1, herpes simplex 2, and all of the EBV IgGs, which there's 4 panels for that. That right there, I can get a lot of answers to their symptoms for them from. And then depending on the program they're in, I have the gut and thyroid restoration, where I do a full 19-page gut analysis of every bacteria that exists in their body, or I do the hair tissue mineral analysis, which tells me about all of the functions of their whole body. I can get significant more answers right there. And then I take the TGO antibodies, the pathogen, what I find their infections are, and I mix it with the other test results. And I can pretty much tell them all of their answers from that. It's pretty phenomenal. So that's why I do call myself and consider myself like a holistic root cause coach, because like, I know what it's like to be sick and want answers, so you can have the guidance and direction to reverse your situation, not just have your time or money wasted.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So because I had to go 10 years without any answers, like, that is the first thing I start providing my clients is, let's get some answers.
Yep.
And you know, I've just been divinely guided to these specific tests that it doesn't get any deeper than the tests I use. Like, blood work is not ever the best course to be able to figure out what's wrong with you, because our blood work, our blood's job is like a freeway. Okay.
Mhm.
It's a freeway and it carries things, it's carriers, right? So when we draw our blood, it's like a snapshot of what's in our blood at that moment. And our blood's job is it has to stay homeostatic, which means there has to be a proper balance of sodium, potassium, whatever your fat soluble vitamins, your water soluble nutrients, your immune system. That's why you have antibodies in your bloodstream that come out on that test, because your immune system is sending those antibodies out. They're in your bloodstream, and you pull a snapshot off that freeway of everything that's moving through your freeway or your bloodstream, and you can see what's happening in your body at that second. So that's why blood doesn't work as like the end all be all of like, let me figure out what's wrong with me. Because if your blood does go swing out of balance, out of that homeostasis, you can die. So that's why we go through the hair. That's why we go through the stool. And that'll give us more of like a 3-month analysis of what's really going on deeper within you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, what are some of the programs you had? You mentioned like a gut protocol, but and I know it depends on everybody, but how long are your typical programs working with you?
It does. It definitely does depend on the person and what they're looking for, because I mean, I'll work with someone as long as they want, but I feel like a good starting point to get answers, start implementing the protocols and the changes to your life and your lifestyle that need to be done based on your test results. A good solid 4 months. I mean, I kind of have bragging rights and to say like within 3 to 4 months, I can reverse, if not decrease, half or more of all of my clients' problems. It's just, I've been doing it for 4 years now. I got it down to a science, and my clients get fantastic results because that's what I desire to provide, right? I feel like women, and this is a total side note, like women are the fabric of society. We are the reason why everything functions. Our families, our schools, our baseball teams, our churches. And when we're not doing good, no one else is doing good.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not here to waste anyone's time. It's like, let's dive in deep and figure out what's going on. And I'm going to give you a individualized protocol with exactly the supplements you need. We're going to find out exactly the gut infections you have, exactly the bacteria you're missing. We're going to put you on the foods you need. We're going to put you on the probiotics you need. We're going to put you on the antivirals you need. And we're going to start making a difference immediately.
Yep.
And, so a lot of my clients, like, they have the same attitude as I do. And it's such a beautiful relationship because they match my work and my effort with their effort. And because of the beautiful combination of attention, love, care, and effort, they get the results they need really fast. So I like to work with my clients for at least 4 to 6 months in my gut and thyroid restoration program, so that we have a solid amount of time to fight the gut infections, which everyone has. Okay. Like it or not, you don't know it, but you have some sort of a gut infection. You just do, because we've been inundated with antibiotics, not only like literally orally from our doctors, right? But we've been inundated with antibiotics through our food system, right? Every time you go eat a hamburger In-N-Out, you're eating antibiotics. You don't realize it. We've also been inundated with antimicrobial everything, hand sanitizer, bleach, wipes, and everyone's gut microbiome, from what I've seen with my own eyes, doing 21 gut tests over the last 2 years now, is the majority of everyone is in a depleted state of their good bacteria and need to work on it significantly.
Yep.
Yeah. So once we get a solid rebuild or remodel of the gut, then I like to move them. If they want to continue, then I like to move them into the hair tissue mineral analysis. So we go a little deeper. That one takes me deep into I don't even use like thyroid panels. I don't go to the doctors anymore and test my thyroid. I use the hair tissue mineral analysis because I can get such an accurate report on what my thyroid's doing from that's how I treat my thyroid, like, and maintain my thyroid. It also tells me exactly the state of adrenal burnout that my client is in. It tells me their insulin and blood sugar imbalances, which a lot of people have and don't even know it. Copper toxicity is crazy for women too, because which a lot of the women that are on antidepressants and have the significant mood swings and the depression, the anxiety, that's very much could be connected to a copper toxicity. And if like anyone's been on birth control, like I was on birth control for 15 years, I was super copper toxic. There's a lot of like ways we're getting toxic amounts of copper infused into our bodies that really mess with our emotions and our emotional stability. And so we work on depleting or decreasing like aluminum, mercury, arsenic, lead, and all the toxic heavy metals that really impede like memory, brain fog, and rebalancing the minerals. And between these two programs, it's like you can literally turn into a whole new woman, not only like in your health, but like in your whole outlook in life as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's so funny because it's not funny, but it is all related. Like it just, yeah, it's nuts as you start to feel better. Like I remember even for me, same thing happened where after like 6 months of working with a practitioner and herbal supplements, and I don't even think I was doing any crazy diet or exercise at that point, but my body started to function properly. And I was like, oh, my hormones balanced out. I was like just working on gut health alone. It
Mm-hmm.
was like, wait a minute. And when you say infection, it's almost just like imbalance is another good way to say it. Like everything's out of balance because there's good and bad bacteria or
Mm-hmm.
one of the doctors for me called them good and bad bugs. And it's just that stuff gets out of whack and where there's more bad than good. And so
Mm-hmm.
throw all your systems out of place. So what's your biggest piece of advice for people when they're on, whether it's in life or in a healing journey?
Don't fall for the rhetoric of my body's attacking itself, or I have an autoimmune and I'm going to be sick for life,
Yep. Yep.
because
Yep.
it's not, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yep.
If
Yep.
you decide
Mhm.
that it doesn't have to be that way and you refuse that reality, then you will be guided to the steps you need to take in order to find the right person to help you, to get the answers, to restore your health. And that will just naturally fade away. You know, a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, I have an autoimmune. I'm like, so
Yeah.
if I reversed an autoimmune and I didn't believe in it and I still don't believe it, why do you have to? Like, you just borrow my faith for a second,
Yeah.
you know? And so I it's different. I'm, you know, that's one of the things that sets me apart from a lot of other thyroid coaches, but I don't believe it.
Nope. Nope. No. And that's no, I love that advice. And that's actually I had somebody tell me that once too, because I walked in, and of course, after seeing 20 plus doctors, I'm like, well, I have Lyme, I have this, and they were like, stop calling yourself sick. And I was like, you're so right. That's
Thank
I mean,
you.
yeah, that leads me to a question though of like, because I feel like we're seeking out a diagnosis or seeking out like what is wrong with my body, what's going on, and we almost need that answer. Do you ever find that people kind of get stuck in that answer though? It's like you have Hashimoto's and you have these Graves or whatever. And do you find that people get stuck in the sick mode as an excuse almost to not make the lifestyle changes or, because that's just out of curiosity. Because step one for me was definitely like, I want to find out what's wrong with me. But then it's kind of like, does it even matter what's wrong? It's more like, wait, let's figure out what's going on with their body so we can address it. But what do you have to say about that topic?
Yeah, thank you. That's such a good point. One of the things I teach I do so much more than just testing and protocols, right? I'm more like a life coach, spiritual coach, because I know that whole body, everything, trauma, spiritual sickness, everything goes into recovering your health. So if my clients try to talk to me like my hypothyroidism, my Hashimoto's, I'm like, that's not yours.
Mhm,
And then I'll push it back on them and be like, is that really what you want to claim? Is it?
mhm, mhm.
And they'll be like, ooh, no, I don't know. And I'm like, careful what you say. And I had to start that's how I've unidentified myself with these diagnoses as well. It's like, so how can you say it instead? You can say like, okay, I've been diagnosed with like or just hypothyroid, or like, I don't know, try to leave the word I out of it and claim it. Don't claim it as your identity, because yeah, it is very easy. Because like I was stuck in that identity. I was stuck in that victim mode. And a lot of people do get trapped in that, and they enjoy having an excuse to not do much, or I don't know. I mean, it's very hard. It's very rare that I come across that, because I very much attract the women that are not like that.
Yes.
So in my world, this doesn't exist. And if
Mhm.
they try to come in and act like that, I tell them really fast, and they're like, "Oh, you're right," and they switch.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I've been in like 27,000 large Facebook groups, and I've seen that. I have seen that victim mode, and it's like they don't want to accept the help, and it's really sad.
Yeah.
I don't, hopefully at some point they will, and it,
And
it,
just understanding we can heal ourselves. Like it's
yeah.
understanding like, wait, I do have the power to do
But
this.
one
I
of the
can.
things I also am now teaching my clients as well is like, these diagnoses, guys, like they're based on theories. Okay. They're literally theories. And these names, Hashimoto's, are people
Yeah.
that theorized the discovery of these things hundreds of years ago. Okay. Like these names are from like the early 1900s.
Mhm.
And there is no more research to back this, because it is specifically a closed door. Hashimoto's thyroid, it's closed. It's a closed door scientific situation. Why would they close the door on any research moving forward?
Mhm.
Why would we have testing from the 70s? You got to start asking yourself these things. Why do I want to claim, a diagnosis from a guy from freaking 1900?
Yeah.
You got to start diving into the history of things. And then, so what I teach my clients is like, no, you don't have Hashimoto's, honey. You have a massive Epstein-Barr infection. No, sweetheart, you don't have hypothyroidism. You literally have a depletion of your calcium, of your magnesium, of your sodium,
Yeah.
all of the main minerals that you need to digest your food, to have good glandular function. And you have C. diff, which is giving you possibly like diarrhea and inconsistent bowel movement issues. So let's literally take the test results and look at it and realize this is not a diagnosis. These are things that we can fix.
Mhm.
So don't claim it as your identity.
Yep.
And it just makes sense at that point.
Yeah, 100% it does. It does.
Mhm.
I just want to thank you so much for coming on here and being so vulnerable and
Yeah.
sharing your incredible story. And I just am so grateful to have met you and be able, I know there's so much more we can go over too, and that's where we can do some mini series or something, because there's so much here in this topic. And that's why, but for podcast sake, I know we fit it back down into an hour, but is there anything that you want to finish with that we haven't covered today that you did want to get across?
Yeah. So I want everyone to know that I have a wonderful worldwide online community. It's called the Butterfly Gang. And in my gang, I am teaching the 10 root cause factors of thyroid illness. I come live and I teach the lesson, but obviously people work and they have different lives and we're on different time zones. So I do have a video vault where I post all the replays. I'm just now starting the 5th root cause illness, medication effects. And
Wow.
so I would love for you guys to join. Because of my situation, I was so isolated and lonely on my journey that I don't want anyone else to feel isolated or lonely, or feel like they have no one to turn to or talk to, because I trust me, it happened to me too. So we have monthly support groups, support calls, where we show up and it's like meet and greet, but you can also share something that's, you're going through, and you can make friends, and I'm there to support you. And then you can, right now, if you join, you can binge on all of the replays. And then the rest of the year, I'm going to be finishing out the root cause series. It's a fabulous place. I love it so much. I have resources. I post tons of podcast meditations. Like it's just loaded
That's,
with things.
yeah. Oh my God, it sounds incredible. I actually didn't even know about that group. I'm like, oh, okay. I love that. And it's just what people need. It's resources, support, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Answers, resources, support. Yep.
yep,
Yeah.
100%. So no, thank you for sharing that. And we'll have that in the show notes as well too. So people be able to access
Yeah.
if you're listening in here. So
Yeah. If they come to my Instagram as well, it's in my bio, and they can check out all the links if they wanted to book a discovery call, or I have what's called a 50, I have an advice call, which is a $50 like starter call with I call like a miniature starter protocol that can like get the ball rolling if they can't work with me like in one of my bigger programs one-on-one. So I have all this. I also have a podcast, Thursday Thyroid Talks. And so all the great resources that you guys would need to see, like what's in my world for you, is in the link in my bio on either TikTok or Instagram. But yeah, I'll hook you up with like links and stuff too.
Yeah. That's all. Yeah. I want to put that all out there, but you have an incredible story and journey, and your positivity and just who you are. It just is a testament to who you are, I should say. But I just want to thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing.
Yes,
And
my pleasure. Thank you for giving me this space to share. Appreciate it.
thank you so much, Sarah.